So far, we've seen the argument is a valid argument. So it has one good characteristics, but remember, just because it's valid, the conclusions are logically connected, logically follow from the premises, does not mean that it's a good argument, right? We need to have true premises. So the question at hand is the argument sound? That is, are all the premises true? And let's just quickly flip back. Let's see if we have... Here's our argument. Anything that can be thought about can exist. Anything that does not exist, cannot exist, premise 2. From premise 2, 3 follows. That is, therefore, anything that can exist does exist, right? We just saw that. Now, from 1 and 3, it looks like it does follow that anything that can be thought about exists. And again, we use contraposition. Therefore, anything that doesn't exist can't be thought about. So there's only one thing that exists. It is. And then we have the other consequences. But I just wanted to focus on this argument. Now, if there's any Achilles heel to this, it looks like it's going to be number 2, right? Anything that does not exist cannot exist, right? Because we had a few examples that it looked like anything that there were things that didn't exist but could exist, right? Like Pegasus and these other things. The question is, let's take a closer look at it. Let me flip back to the slide that we're up to, and next one. Okay, are all the premises true? Well, what about premise true to anything, right? We were just talking anything that does exist cannot exist. Why on earth would you think that's true? And notice, and I think we should see that that particular statement, that premise, that proposition is ambiguous. There are 2 ways of understanding it. I think it's going to end up one is obviously true and the other one is kind of questionable. That is, anything that doesn't exist can be understood as saying, look, it's not possible that if a thing exists, then it does not exist, right? A thing can both exist and not exist. That's not possible, which is one way of understanding anything that doesn't exist can't exist. Or it could be taken to be saying if a thing does not exist, then it's not possible that the thing exists. And then the question is, obviously, if number 2 means to be, we're going to have a problem. So 2 sounds like it's true because 2A is true, right? 2A is trivially true. It's not possible that if a thing exists, it doesn't exist, right? That is not a possibility. However, if we go back to see how the inference works, what we need, remember, it's going to be clear that I think we need to be true. And let's just back up a second and take a look at that. That is, to get from 2 to 3, we need to say if something does not exist, then it's not possible that exists. See the second line under 2? Then it's not possible. That is, the possibility is only over that second existing. So it possibly exists is the cue to enable us to get 3, which is what we need to get all of the paradoxical conclusions. So it's not the obviously true sounding premise that it looks like we need, but to make the argument valid. But to make the argument valid, we need or Parmenides needs the premise to mean to be, and to be does not seem like it's true. Now, logicians call what Parmenides has done or committed a fallacy that he's committed. What he's done is committing a fallacy, and it's called a modal error or a scope error. The idea is, what does the modality, the possibility or the not possibility, what does it range over? What is it saying is not possible, possibly true? And, technical note, we mentioned earlier that logicians call necessity, possibility, modalities, modes of truth, ways for things to be true or false. And the error that Parmenides is making, better be more careful when I do this. The error that Parmenides is making is what the modality, what possibility ranges over. So the bottom line of this is that the second premise that Parmenides needs to make the argument valid is false, hence the argument is unsound. Let's just back up for a second, because that is, if we look at it, Parmenides needs to be true. There it is, to be. If x doesn't exist, then it's not possible that x exists. But we have a lot of examples of things that don't exist, but it's possible they exist. Right? Cows jumping over the moon, mythical winged horses could exist, right? We can think about them. They don't exist, but it's possible that they do. It's not contradictory that they don't. So this is a pretty serious error. Now the question is, okay, so he made this mistake. Now I see it. What happened? Well, notice it wasn't so clear to everybody. I think it wasn't clear for several reasons. One reason is it took quite a bit to figure out what this argument was, right? We had to dig it out. From in between this very long, very cryptic, hard to understand poem. And then the second thing is we had to understand a little bit about what's called today modal logic. So all we needed is about 2,500 additional years of development from about, we said, in the 500 BC area, or let's say until the late 1900s. So it's about 2,500 years of developmental logic to be able to understand the problem. But even more, consider nobody figured out that this was a problem. Nobody back in ancient times. Socrates, one of the brightest guys around, couldn't figure out what was wrong with this. He was very, very, very impressed with this argument. So where does that leave us with? And furthermore, I should tell you, we're going to turn to this in a little while into some of Zeno's arguments, because Zeno had clever arguments to show that what Parmenides was saying is true. As we believe all these things about the world, about motion, about space, about time, and it's infinitely divisible, and Zeno is going to argue that none of these things are real. So all the things that we think are correct are not correct. But let's just, in a second, let's see where it leaves us, and then let's see where to go from there.